This is a further update on the Flint water crisis, and Governor Rick Snyder is going to come on the Morning Joe show and basically just tell us what he's done. So take a listen, and then I'll just make my commentary, which will be brief at the end.
Too many things were going just wasn't right. It isn't right that the kids I met in Flint on Sunday were poisoned because their governor wanted to save money. And that is why I went to Flint, Michigan on Sunday. When people anywhere in America are held back by injustice, that demands action.
All right, that was Hillary Clinton during her concession speech in New Hampshire on Tuesday night. And joining us now from Ann Arbor, Michigan, the governor of that state, Rick Snyder. He's here to discuss his latest budget proposal for aid in the Flint water crisis.
Governor, we'll get to that in 1 second. I want you first to respond to Hillary Clinton's charge that you poisoned, quote, poisoned people to save money.
That's not accurate. This was a terrible tragedy, and it really goes to multiple levels of government. There were bureaucrats at the state government that made mistakes, serious mistakes in common sense and judgment. There were mistakes at the EPA. And the real question is these people work for me at the state government, so I am taking responsibility for their actions, and I'm focused in on fixing the problem. This is about solving this issue, and we shouldn't put politics into this. We should all be rallying together to say, how do we make things better in Flint? And that's my focus, and that's why I'm proud of the budget I just announced yesterday.
So talk about that. Talk about what the money goes towards.
Sure. We'd already done $9 million, followed by a $28 million supplemental. Yesterday I asked for $195 million more to do multiple areas to help the people of Flint. And it begins with essentially $37 million for water infrastructure, $15 million for food and nutrition, $63 million for health, social well-being, issues like that, a $30 million water bill credit, and a $50 million reserve fund. And that's for Flint. I listened to your last guest, and he was talking about infrastructure. Not only are we doing that for Flint, I proposed $165 million to go in a state infrastructure fund, because we need to be addressing Flint, but now is the time to act on this whole infrastructure issue across the state of Michigan, and I'm focused on that. So the total amount we talked about yesterday was about $400 million devoted to Flint and water infrastructure in some fashion.
Okay, just so that you know, the state of Michigan is running has approximately $1 billion in surplus funds, and as was indicated at the beginning of this, they didn't go to the Flint River water to do anything other than to save money. The emergency managers came in and they took a hatchet to the entire budget for the city of Flint, and they saw an opportunity to save money and also to starve out Detroit by, instead of using the Detroit water system, going to the Flint River water, which was right there and available. And these assholes could have been okay if they had spent an extra $100 a day to properly treat the water before it hit the pipes and basically corroded the pipes and allowed lead, copper, and other elements to seep into the water system, basically poisoning the people. So did they poison the people on purpose? You make the call, but they did. Their actions did in fact cause the people to be poisoned, and somebody's liable and somebody's ass needs to go to jail.
You call this a tragedy across all levels of government. Tell us who failed, who was fired, what are the consequences for the people responsible for this?
Yeah, in terms of the state, the biggest failure point was the Department of Environmental Quality, and I've made significant actions there. Again, we had some civil servants, we had to go through the civil service process, fired people there. Then with respect...
Now, the Environmental Quality Department, those are the people who actually lied to everybody. The citizens made them aware of the water problem, and they basically came back and told the citizens, the scientists, the doctors, that they were full of shit and just fear-mongering, and that the water was okay, which, as we all know, was a blatant lie. So 2 lifelong civil servants supposedly were the ones that basically lied to their manager. Those 2 people have been fired, and then the manager is also gone. And now, as far as the EPA is concerned, their top lead guy came to his boss, who was the regional EPA manager, and told her what was going on, and she basically muzzled this guy. So, you know, she's resigned, and I wouldn't have even let her resign. Her ass should have been fired as well. But anyway, let him finish what he's saying.
The leadership made changes there. The EPA was part of this whole process. There were multiple levels of failure here. But my point is I'm not spending all my time on looking back. The real question is the people of Flint are suffering. And I take that personally every day. And that's why I spend a lot of time there saying, how do we make things better in terms of a plan for solutions? And that begins by providing bottled water and filters short term. The next step is we've already started the process of giving us a system to say, how do we do enough tests to learn the system is going to be safe again, so the water coming out of the tap is good. And then longer term, we are starting the process of mapping the pipes, the infrastructure for the city of Flint, which was missing in many respects, to know where the pipes are, the lead pipes are, and how do we come up with a long-term replacement program. So it's a series of actions that are short-term, intermediate-term, and long-term to address this issue. And at the same time, there are other important actions to help with the health care of the children affected by this and other individuals. And then finally, we need to strengthen the entire city of Flint with jobs programs, other things, to bring back their economy. They've been a struggling place for many years, but they're wonderful people there. Let's do more to help the city of Flint be successful. It's Flint, Michigan, and I'm proud of that.
So, Willie, also the EPA regional director got fired for suppressing the report.
And is there negligence here or something beyond, I don't know, it just seems to me that...
It's beyond negligence because people were screaming for years that the water's unsafe, that they're getting sick from it. But the fact of the matter is also that infrastructure is crumbling across this country. Congress has not funded infrastructure in a systematic way for decades now. Fallows talked about just a minute ago about Great Depression era infrastructure that we're still living on, or the highway system, which is a half-century old.
Well, even look at Manhattan. We've got the Triborough Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnel, the ways you get in and out of it. Everything was built in the 30s,
75 years ago, 80 years ago. Absolutely.
It's outrageous.
And you look at the numbers, we're not investing, and we're not raising the funds to make the most basic investments in this country.
Governor Snyder, it's Willie Geist. Critics say that even this $200 million is not enough to fix all the lead service lines in the city of Flint. Given the fact that the people in that city just don't trust you right now, shouldn't you just go in and fix out and swap out all the lead service pipes that go into Flint, Michigan?
Actually, that wouldn't be the best approach to start with, and that's based on Professor Mark Edwards' advice. The individual who led the charge to identify this, that is a hero in this case for bringing it up and bringing it to people's attention. If you look at, we're following the steps he recommends. You can recoat the pipes. That's the process. We're not going to say they're safe until testing says they're safe. And we've got 400 sites. We're beginning that testing very soon to start that process. The next step is people are throwing out numbers, but we don't even know where all the lead pipes are. We know 5,000 lead service lines. We have 25,000 that are not. We have 25,000 that are unknown. And we're signing the contract, the consulting agreement, to start that process of mapping those all out this week. The next step after that is to prioritize the replacement of pipes in a thoughtful fashion. And one instance you should look at is when Washington, D.C. had a huge issue with lead in their water. And they actually started digging up pipes too fast and actually made the problem worse in some cases by doing that. So this is where it shouldn't be people speculating. It should be based on science and engineering advice and information from experts, particularly outside of government at this point.
There are more than 8,600 children under the age of 6 in Flint, Michigan. What do you say to their parents today? Is the water safe in Flint, Michigan right now?
We've told them no. Absolutely, they should not be drinking unfiltered water out of the tap. And we've made that clear going back to October. That's one of the tragedies of this is people having to go get water filters or bottled water in some fashion. This is not the quality of life people should have to deal with. That's why we want to get This short-term fix is not a good fix. That's why we're starting the water testing programs to say recoat the pipes, get it safe out of the tap again, then look into this infrastructure replacement, and then how do we take this beyond Flint? And that's why I want to make investments statewide to address this issue.
With all due respect, I just feel the need to ask. I mean, it's sort of like when we're talking about Wall Street and shouldn't somebody, isn't there negligence to the point that maybe perhaps carries over into the legal realm here? Shouldn't there be consequences that go far beyond what you're talking about? And when you talk about the numbers of children who are poisoned, shouldn't someone be going to jail?
Well, again, that process is going on, and I appreciate the people. Actually, I encourage people to do their investigations, and it includes the U.S. Attorney, includes the Michigan Attorney General. All those efforts are going on and should go on, and we should get lessons learned, and if people did inappropriate things, action should clearly be taken from a legal point of view. That absolutely needs to take place, no doubt about that. But they're doing their good work. My point is given that they're doing their work, shouldn't most of our focus, the rest of us, be focused in on helping the people of Flint? Shouldn't that be the top priority in terms of our efforts, why these investigations are going on?
All right. My opinion, I can tell you who needs to go to jail right now. The two emergency managers, Kurtz and Early, those two guys should go to jail. And then the two civil service employees that reported false information up to their supervisor, those two guys should go to jail. So that's at least 4 people that should go to jail. Now, if you want to spread it around somewhat all the way up to the governor, because he hired the emergency managers and the supervisor of those two civil servants, because the scientists did provide him with the information indicating that lead was in the system, yeah, you can bounce it up to him. And then if you really want to get wild, since Snyder hired both of those guys, you can, if you like, allocate some jail time to him too. But for sure, those 4 people, the 2 emergency managers and the 2 civil service employees that straight out lied, they need to go to jail. And again, their supervisor, who did have conflicting information and didn't check it out, that person should possibly go to jail too.
Governor Rick Snyder, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Really quickly, Jeffrey Sachs, history will judge Governor Snyder.
Yep.
I am not making a judgment one way or the other on him right now, but I want to follow up on what you said. Washington, D.C. chokes off infrastructure money, chokes off spending money, and doesn't follow up to make sure that, like for instance, Katrina was caused by man-made infrastructure disasters. The same thing here.
Look, we've been on a campaign against government now for 30 years.
Exactly.
And the campaign against government, even to the point of not fixing the roads, the bridges, the dams, every 2 or 3 years, the civil engineers in this country say we have a $2 trillion gap.
Emergency.
Who listens? The governor ran on cutting taxes, not on building infrastructure. That's the fact of all of
Like
this.
a lot of
And that's exactly the point. The governor is so interested in cutting taxes on the wealthy that he wasn't generating enough money in order for the state to handle some infrastructure or work on their own. So he bears a lot of the responsibility here as well.